Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you co-hosts, brilliant that you are out there in the larger tabletop role-playing game community. I appreciate you being here, helping this channel and, well, the rest of the community benefit from our discussions here as we talk unscripted and open. Today's discussion, we are going to talk about, it's going to be a minimum of 5 techniques to create new monsters. And I did hit, plus a few honorable mentions. And it seems like unconsciously I started going down this path of visiting oldie but goodies. And one of those is taking a look at some of the terminology we use in tabletop role-playing games, especially those of us grognards, those that have been around for quite a while. And I happen to have a bit of a desire to talk about things that maybe in the role playing community we don't tend to talk about. Not necessarily today, I know everything is political, but it's more or less talking about things that maybe we don't have a context for, or maybe we don't have categorizations for them. And one of those is known as the reskin. And one of the sexiest things out there that makes a lot of money are monster books. Um, we love the artwork. Sometimes we buy our role playing games, especially Dungeons and Dragons and all the derivatives thereof. And the classic setup after a couple of iterations has always been the player's handbook. That's the book where you as a player get to grab this book and you get to decide what kind of character you're going to play. Are you going to play a noble knight or a stealthy assassin? Are you going to play a brilliant wizard or a religious cleric or something like that? And you pick your race and your capabilities. And then there were 2 other books that went along with it. The one was the Dungeon Master's Guide. This is the person that runs the game and helps them. They have the rules that are not player facing, and they have the magic items listed in there, and traps, and diseases, and the encumbrance rules, and maybe the grappling rules and whatnot. And then there was always a 3rd book. And that 3rd book originally was the Monster Manual. And we've seen plenty of iterations thereof: compendiums, monstrous manuals, fiend folios, etc. And it goes on. And oftentimes when we begin our game, they give us, some adversaries, some monsters. And every role-playing system has a little thing in the back, bestiary. Yeah, bestiaries and whatnot. Yeah. Pelora says the bestiary tends to be one of the first books. One of the first places I look in an RPG book. It gives the quickest bit of flavor and pictures. I love myself some pictures. And it also, if you take a look at the adversaries, and I'm calling them adversaries because not every role playing game has monsters. Sometimes those adversaries are human beings, whether they are evil cults or um, uh, espionage organizations that are working against the player characters, whatever the case may be. And it gives you an idea of like what your enemies are. Like your heroes are only as good as the enemies they fight. But one of the dirty secrets when it comes to these monstrous books, these bestiaries, etc., as a person who is a content creator, is that for the most part, a lot of these monsters are it as a person who likes to be very creative, I see how easy it is to essentially yeah, yeah. Dead Man says the D&D includes humans in the monster manual, and any other races as well, the dwarves and elves and whatnot. Yeah. Oh man. Hey, John Andrews says adversaries equals monsters done well. Well, one of the dirty secrets is that a lot of those monsters are just reskins. And what do I mean by a reskin? For a person who wants to create something on the fly, whether you are stuck for something or you are designing your own adventures, you're homebrewing your world and whatnot, and you might be thinking, man, I've got 37 monsters, and that's not enough because my players They've already encountered trolls. There's not much. There's not much creativity in yet another goblin horde. Oh, they've met bandits on the road. Boy, this monster book, we're done with it. And as a publisher, you know, it's like how much I can make money, and I'm saying me because I'm going to focus this on me rather than blaming anybody else. But a lot of monsters are honestly they're just reskins. It's it's a new coat of paint on a thing you've already seen, but it makes it look shiny and new. And much like a new hamburger at your favorite hamburger place because they've put on top of it new kinds of toppings that you haven't seen before, like peanut butter and jelly on my burger, which is a real thing, or a hard fried egg, or thick cut bologna. Like who would think of putting that on a hamburger? But it's like you've seen these things separated and they put them together. And so we're going to talk about the fine art of reskin. And this is something that publishers like myself don't really want you to know. But there's an art to it. And we're going to break down some of the techniques to reskin a monster. Now, we've all done it before. Even if you are a player, we've all done these things before in our heads, but maybe we didn't have a context for it. So we're going to get on the same page. Yeah, dead man. Yeah, a hamburger with a slice of pineapple. We've seen it. Listen, pineapple, avocado. Of course, we can go with the classics, mushrooms and bacon. Listen, Red Robin, the restaurant Red Robin, at least here in the States, is a perfect example of doing that. Yeah. Let's see. Zamara says, well, if I remember correctly, the first and second edition considered monsters as any NPC the players might come into conflict with. It sure did. Then over time, they removed the goodly races out of it, and that's where some of the people that get upset with the wokeness is like, well, orcs and goblins and bugbears are still left in there, but the humans were removed, so they're not monsters. Hmm. Uh-oh, here we go. Yes, a lich mech. Yeah, he foxy. I see you. Yeah. The avatar name changes, but I see you. I see where you're at. Okay, so reskinning. Sometimes we're stuck with a monster, and these are some 5 basic ways to reskin something. Reskin. Well, and you could call this something else. It's been called reskin, repurposing, rebranding. Put in front of something with maybe a dash or whatnot, and you're going down the right path. So, what do I mean by that? Well, one of the absolute basic things we know what to do in Dungeons and Dragons is affect the mechanics of the monster. Now, before we get to affecting the mechanics of the monster, there is something else that as a world creator, as someone who loves verisimilitude, someone who wants my players to be immersed in it, one of the things we should actually do beyond any other thing is the easiest thing to reskin is to change the name. Change the name. I know it sounds odd to do that. It's like, well, what do you mean change the name? That's easy. Like, why is that a reskinning thing? Um, if we get away from calling a troll, calling a goblin, an orc, etc., stop calling dwarves and whatnot. I understand it's shorthand, and maybe you as the dungeon master or the game master really don't want to get into the descriptive elements of it, but just by changing the name, especially within the context of the world, it goes a long way to surprising your player characters. An example would be player characters are out in the wild. They know that there's a distant community that's being attacked because they're always being attacked by monstrous creatures. And the people out there refer to the scaled, they're the scaled folk. And they start describing them. And they're like, well, they've got the mouth of an alligator. Their skin is scaled like snakes and whatnot. And your player characters might, metagaming wise, and this is actually a way to harness the power of metagaming. And they'll go, oh, of course they're talking about lizard folk. And Are they talking about lizard folk? Maybe you decided to open up the book and you see some Sahogan or Dragonborn or Draconians or Troglodytes, an old favorite, an old classic favorite of mine. So on and so forth. Change the name, and because maybe they do find lizard folk and the players are like, oh well, I know exactly what they are because I remember the stats from the book. Yeah, yuan T, exactly. And you can listen, you can go on and on with the don't call them by the name that's in the book, right? Because maybe it could be an abomination. Why? Well, maybe not, right? We don't know, and the players may not know. A naga, right? Little head, snake. What? A humanoid head, a snake body, a medusa. You players don't know, and that's a great way to surprise them. So the first thing is just don't call the thing by that name, or if you're going to use the classic name goblin, okay, don't just use goblins. Maybe the people in world call them all goblins. We, as human beings, like to classify those people as a monolith. People in world will probably do the same thing. And of course, if you're your classic villager farmer that's never traveled more than a day away from home, pretty much everything with scales on it is going to be a lizard-like person if it's humanoid, right? Or anything with fang-toothed humanoid with a oddly colored skin might be a goblin or a troll or something. They don't know. It's big and giant. It's twice my height. It must be an ogre, even though they might be hill giants or fire giants or something. So, or even more than that, a demon or rakshasa or whatever. So, first, the first thing is rename it. So either use a classic name for something that it's not, meaning calling fey creatures goblins, or stop calling the creature by its name. It's not a troll. It's a mutate. It's a devil spawn. It is, a hag's child or something, whatever the people in that location would call it. So if you want to start surprising the player characters. Now, the second one, this is like 1A, and that is the appearance. The name, change the name, or use the classic name and find some other stat blocks, and then the appearance. I'm going to give you an example. Um, the blue skinned the blue skinned Vashnir were rumored to have landed here eons ago in a giant building or craft or something from a distant location, and their blue skin and their faceless body, their featureless faces have always made people feel ill at ease. No eyes, no mouth, no ears to speak of. Just smooth and strange. And they carry around with them strange artifacts from a distant land. Some call it high technology, but most of their what they call technology is broken, and they've come to use uh, weaponry and armor that is from our land. And when they look at each other, they speak in a strange clicking noises and whirs and beeps or something. Like now, okay, so that pulled that out of my ass. What stat block is that? I don't know. Orcs. Maybe I'm talking about constructs. Maybe I'm talking. Change the appearance up. Sure, we all know the artwork of like an orc is an orc. They've got they got the snaggletooth kind of mouth to them. We know that lizard folk look like, well, lizards and folk. Sure, we can find lots of art that doesn't match, but change the appearance up. Maybe your orcs don't have classic brown and or green skin. Maybe they look completely different. Maybe a troll doesn't look like a troll. Maybe a troll looks like a human being, but they are mutated from the inside instead of the outside or something. Change up the appearance. And when I say change it up, not just slightly, change it up big time. Like give a lot of your monsters an appearance that is nothing related to the appearance that are in the books. Mufa says another fun thing is not changing the name, but changing the monster and its abilities. You see some goblins hiding in the grass, right? Exactly. And it's like, ooh, it's just goblins. Easy XP. Famous last words. Exactly. And not only exactly what Mufa is saying about another fun thing is to not change the name, but changing the monster's abilities. Yeah, when I say change the name, essentially pick a different stat block for the same thing. Maybe that goblin isn't really a goblin stat block. Or if it is a goblin, don't call them goblins, call them something else. Like, hey, all the people call anything that lives out in the woods goblins, whether they're dryads, whether they're other fey creatures, whether they are, it doesn't matter. They're all goblins. you know, all undead are zombies, that kind of thing. Zamara says, I will name the first type of reskinning renaming because it's simple and obvious and tells you exactly how to do it. Yeah, rename. Exactly. Yep, there you go. And Deadman says goblins are fake creatures in mythology. Exactly. And as a matter of fact, if we look around the world with cultures from around the world, you will find that there is a similarity with some of our mythology, but then there's also differences. Like maybe in one type of mythology, goblins really were real fey creatures. They could fade in the night. Maybe they're drawn to your dreams. Maybe they feed on your fear or something like that. As opposed to, well, the role playing game says a goblin is a quarter a quarter CR, so that's all that they are. It's like, nah, that's not it. Plur says, I just want a village to call the nearby halflings goblins now. Yeah, exactly. Like the players are expecting Mordor and walk into the Shire. Why not? People do that. We do that in reality today. Those things, those people, that area over there, we classify as a monolithic. Oh, it's the othering, right now, and that's not necessarily. It, it may not necessarily be designed towards hatred. It could just be that everybody consider, the local kids are like, oh, we take out pastries to the goblins that live on the edge of the woods all the time, right? And sure, they might be halflings or real goblins or sprites or pixies, but maybe they just all consider them to be goblins, and the kids aren't scared of them, but the people are. Yep. Yeah, yes, there are the cannibal halflings in Dark Sun, or the dinosaur riding halflings in Eberron. Okay, Vince says, "Hey, online training. Hey, oh, got to take a break. Hey, Vince, what's going on there?" I was side note. I was thinking about your role playing game there, Vince, but I'm not going to get distracted. Zamora says, "I will call the second type of reskinning." Reskinning. We are literally changing the skin of the thing, not necessarily what's under the hood. Exactly. So, and sometimes you'll hear me mention rubbing off the serial numbers, which is a literal reskin. Nah, I'm not going to do it, Vince. The infestation. The Sometimes it can be difficult for us to literally remove the skin of in our imagination and wrap something on top of it. But if we take a look at the stat block and just look at ignore the name and look at the capabilities in the stat block, then we can reskin what it is. Absolutely, yep, that is exactly what I'm talking about, or thinking about rather. Now, let me give you an example. Um, I have a stat block that gives the stat block has poison, an attack that causes poison. The stat block has a climbing speed. You'll see where I'm going with this. The stat block has the ability for the creature or the person or whatever to launch something that entangles or adheres to the player characters. Now, what I'm trying to describe without using a name is a spider, like a giant spider or something. But that could very easily be a human being, a spy, an assassin. Now, you're using, I don't know, the wolf spider or the trapdoor spider stat block, but that could be a human being that's an assassin, or a demonic creature that was spawned out of the womb of the mother devil or something like that. Like, and sometimes changing how we interact, which is going to be my third one, changing how we interact with the creature is also a great way to do it. Yeah. Vince mentions it is much easier when the abilities are vague instead of very specific. If you have too much detail, it becomes harder to reskin. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. There are some monsters in books that are so hyper specific in what they do and how they do it that it could be a little bit like it's like this is always going to sound like a doppelganger, no matter how much you try to undoppelgang the doppelganger, right? Or lycanthrope, right? Lycanthropy tends to come across the same way, and but there's a way to get around that. There is a little bit of a way to get around that. Pelora says, right, as you say, Spider, one decides to start doing acrobatics by my window. Oh, climbing up and down. Yeah. Vince says, a blast can be anything from a sonic ray to a gunshot. Yeah. But a gunshot, range 60 feet, damage 2d8 piercing, ammunition 6 would pretty much always be just that. And the first thing that comes to mind, ammunition 6, piercing 6 shooter, right? That's the only thing. That always bugged that always bugged me with Dungeons and Dragons. Like there's like 1,000,001 blast type spells when they could have actually narrowed it down to one spell with just options in it, but whatever. It's a construct of the game. So Mike says, having written a pile of new monsters, reskinning is easy. A quick way is to take two monsters of an equivalent power range, swap one or two abilities. Example, take your giant spider and make it a construct. You got ahead of me. Don't do that. Okay. So we've renamed and we've changed the appearance. Okay, so now we got to go on to creature type. That's the creature type part of this is pretty easy. Now, one of the things that might confuse us a little bit is that some of the resistances, vulnerabilities, immunities that some of the creatures might have might change based on what type of creature it is. But changing the creature type, which is usually located at the very top of a monster stat block in Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm going to take this even further. That not just changing the creature type, but the monstrous origin can really get players to really think surprise them. So an example would be, let's take an ooze. Okay, so the classic going down in the dungeon, you're 5 torches deep. Yes, there's a game called 5 Torches Deep. You go 5 torches deep down into the dungeon, and a strange, sickly fluid is dripping from the ceiling, and the players are like, it's an ooze. How are we going to fight it? And then, player characters doing the Rolodex in their head. Okay, let's see. What color is it? Is it an ooze or a fungus? Is it a mold or a jelly? Is it a pudding? Is it okay? They're doing all that. But imagine, if you will, the player characters are in the local town, and there's a big gathering. Someone there spouting out religious doctrine, wearing their white robes, no clothing underneath. And slowly, ever so gently, people with bright smiles in their faces, bemused, filled with the pleasure, the exaltation of communing with the gods of love and peace and serenity, start to surround the local town, and the player characters get that itch in the back of their neck, and it's like, there's something wrong here. There's something really wrong here. And the people there start to just take their robes off slowly, and all of a sudden their stomachs start to churn and move, and strange colored fluid leaks out of their lips and out of their nose, and their eyes start to turn and shift, and their bodies start to break, and all of a sudden they start to vomit up and the origins, the interaction. Where'd the monster come from? Did they drink a concoction? Has this godling, is this cult dedicated to a creature that has infested them? Maybe it's like it's literally drinking the poison Kool-Aid kind of thing, right? So where the monster came from and its origin is a very big thing that can change how and where the monster came from. Lizard folk can just be born out in the swamp, or maybe there is a There is some kind of patron, warlock patron, that if people just uh, give up their lives to them, that they will gain these other greater capabilities. And then you flip into this book and the stat block, and that's what they are. Okay, co-hosts are talking here. Pelora says, but anyway, there are birds with web-like saliva they use to make nests. It's not a big stretch to have birds that spit webs. Real life is good inspiration too. Oh, hells yes. There are. Hey, kitty, come on. There are plenty of. I used to watch nature shows all the time. I was addicted to them. I go back in the day with Jacques Cousteau. Sophie's, no, you're not jumping up here. You have your co-host seat right next to me. Yeah, love you too, kitty. Come on. Sorry about that, guys. Producers calling me while I'm on air. Vince mentions, yeah, easy reskin. X is not a monster; it's just a cursed human. Exactly, exactly. Vince goes on to say, my golem builder always took useful monsters and made them into useful golems. I think they used to be called effigies in D&D 3.5. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mike says, I have a trap, for example, that has robot spiders that act like walking landmines. They're triggered by enemy movement. Oh, we're going to talk about that. We're about that part of it too. Hey, Sophies, come on, go to your spot. I know you want some attention. You woke up after eating. Mm-mm-mm. Mike says, to address the a doppelganger is always a doppelganger until yeah, they're an ooze. I'm wondering if that's where the Obelix came from. I think so. Creatively, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Vince mentions, yeah, I like it, Mike. Reminds me of alien grenades from Half-Life. Throw and they first bite, then explode. If no enemies are nearby, they come back to you. Chat's moving on a little bit ahead. Elder Scrolls. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, I love it. Now, Mike says this reskinning applies to PCs as well. One could play a changeling and just make it an Obelix. Of course, of course. Like we've seen, especially with the. I know some people have a problem with turning like instead of race now it's more like legacy and heritage and that kind of thing. But a player character need not be born the way they are, right? Yeah, I was going to do that. That was going to be an honorable mention. Yeah, just mix two animals. Boom, new monster. Owlbear, anyone that has stuck around forever? Maybe we just like the owlbear's look or something. Maybe there's something nice about it. Mike says, given the evolutionary scramble we call the platypus, mixing creature types is natural. Hell, you could start. You could make up a list of one type of animal, make a list of another type of animal, turn it into a randomized chart, and just what's the dumb one out there? I think it's called like the shark bear or something. It's like a bear with sharks for its arms, shark heads for its arms or something. That's a silly image out there. Yeah. Uh, yeah, John Andrews says, not to get off topic, but the Beast Master Companion only has to be a beast that is CR one quarter or less and medium or smaller. Yeah, exactly. Have fun with this. Yeah. Spider horse. Well, Vince mentions the platypus is more than two creatures, though. You know what? So is the chimera. You could have some fun with those monsters as well, with that kind of monster. And the original, what is it? There's the chimera had a, instead of three heads, it had two heads in the front and then a tail that was like a snake or something, and you could really have some fun with that. So changing the origin of whatever it is and the creature type that is. I'm kind of mixing those two together, making something undead or a construct or a plant. What is it? The yellow musk creeper is a plant that when a person breathes in the spores, they of course get to die. Hey, Harry, land shark. Thank you there, Harry. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you very much for the cup of coffee. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Mike says the chimera is a toolbox of possibilities. Yep. dragon heads and gorgon headed, anything that breathes something out, right? And it doesn't even need to be that. Goats and rams and bears, and you could come up with lions and tigers, and oh my, right, exactly. And by changing the origin could be a mutation, a curse, that hag and drinking a hag's milk. Maybe this thing that normally is spawned from the pits of hell isn't. Maybe it's just a natural creature in your world, like orcs and lizard folk have become. They are just natural sentient creatures that walk around, as opposed to being a one and done. Much like in mythology, the Minotaur wasn't something that was born. The Minotaur was cursed by the gods, right? And the Medusa, same way. The Medusa wasn't a biologically procreating creature. The Medusa was cursed by the gods. Same could be done here as well. Yeah. Ow. Vince says, yeah, goblins are just human babies that have been fed goblin milk. Yep. Who knows? Who's to say? Yeah. Oh, Mike talks about the out of the box encounters. Has an Arctic chimera. Yep. Snow leopard, white dragon, and mountain goat. Exactly. Breeze cold. Wears a headband of intellect, so it has an intelligence 19. Ask me if it ambushes and drops boulders, etc. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Um, Now, Dead Man, of course, brings out the stats. Chimera in the monster manual had a goat head, a lion head, a dragon head, and a snake for a tail. Did it had all? Okay. Um, Z mentions that. I stole the jockey from Monster Hunter video game. D&D fan made and called them raptors in game. Raptors. Ooh. Vince, you're so strange. He Fox. He says in the science fantasy setting, I like to do a lot. A lot. My players go up against a robot dragon. Well, exactly. I mean, you call something a robot, then that changes. Like if you have a robotic spider, let's go back. This is called a callback. You do a robotic spider, a construct spider. The idea is that's what happens in the player's mind is, did someone create this new? Is it old? Is it pre-programmed, or is it walking around on its own? Is this something I can keep and stick into my handy haversack or ride on the back of or something? Yep. Mike says fake goblins might be human babies kidnapped and breastfed by hags. Exactly. Exactly. And it comes with its own stories as well. Okay, so let's move on from there. Another way to change a monster, and let's go back to the out of the box encounter from that Mike mentioned, is you guys know I'm going to mention it, the environment. Okay, exploration, the environment. Just make you don't need to change the capabilities, but I would modify the capabilities either of the monster or make the environment a detriment to the players, but not the monster itself, depending on where it's at. So, reskinning a monster, just reskin it by the environment it's in. So, if it lives on the cliffs of a mountain and it has this goes going to go to my next thing about movement and ambulation, how it moves and moves around. But hell, a thing that lives in the Arctic might be white and have skin to allow it to blend in. Maybe it has maybe it moves through the treetops in a forest or a jungle. Maybe it swims through the ocean. Maybe it blends into the desert sands because the back of the carapace of the insects it adheres sand to its back so that when it sinks down into the sand, it's difficult to see it or something. Yep, where Vince mentions fire elemental on a frozen lake throws blue flame, blue fire or something. You could come up with so many different ways. Maybe it's aquatic or amphibian. Maybe there are just think of the region in which this monster, especially if it's like a animal intelligence or something, they would definitely be adapted to the region in which they live. Much like Snow leopards are adapted to living into the Arctic cold, which look a little bit different than black panthers, which look different than pumas or ocelots or tigers or lions or cheetahs. So they're still felines, but they are, much like a black bear is different than a polar bear. And we can do that with all of our monsters. Like, imagine Arctic bugbears. Most people might think of them as Yeti. Maybe there are jungle bugbears and they have like moss and vines that they either attach to their bodies or they grows from their bodies. Maybe they look almost covered in moss or fungus or algae or something like that. Elementals run in the same gambit, right? Where you have, I don't know if any of you young folk remember this, but there used to be standard four elementals. There were quasi elementals, there were para elementals, and so on and so forth. So you had like you had your earth, air, fire, water. You had your dust, ice, smoke, lava. Ooh, my brain's going. Salt. I can't remember all of it. The methods were in there in that category and whatnot. So it's already been done. We can just do that with all the other monsters. What does a desert spider look like? Would it be like a trapdoor kind of thing? Um, what does a winter spider look like? Does it, instead of spewing webs, does it spew out an entrapping kind of ice tendrils or something? Mike says the orcs of the Iron League and Thul have raptor cavalry. Ooh, where female orcs ride oviraptors, reskinned Allosaurus. It was a hell of a surprise to the half-orc player who had no idea it was raised elsewhere. I love it. I love that. Uh, I love mounted riders for some reason. There's just something cool about it. I wish mounted combat rules weren't. They're not difficult, but we just don't use them enough. I like mounted riders of all types. Sorry, I bring them up all the time too. I love myself some pterodactyl riders. Vince says elementals are just humanoids that died by a pure form of the element. Ooh, they still look like zombies that are burned, drowned, etc. See, yeah, I like that. Like, maybe in this community, when someone dies, they don't become undead. Like, if someone burned to death by a fireball, and when they come back, they are like engulfed human beings or something, or smoke pours out of their mouths, or when you get touched, you freeze to death or something like that. Yeah, I like it. Cactus tree folk in deserts. I love it. I love it when they breed, their little babies turn into tumbleweed and whatnot. Mm-mm-mm. Another out of the box is the Beast of Bellard. Simply follows the fine print under the troll section. It's a troll that has eaten multiple things and mutated. Now it has two heads, more intelligence, climbs trees. Yeah, and myself and from Critical Hit, we wrote the uh, Why Horror for Nerdarchy. It was one of their. It became one of their uh, Patreon adventures, and in it there was a wizard, alchemist or something, that got a troll addicted to potions. And at the very end of it, yeah, I'm giving it away a little bit. At the very end of it, the troll escapes and is inside of this essentially like laboratory of chemicals, and the troll fights the player characters and starts imbuing or spilling chemicals on itself and throwing them at the player characters. And it's pretty it's kind of funny. There's like random tables and different effects and things that happen if the players use the chemicals themselves, or the troll drinks them and things like that. Yeah. Deadman brings up the Joggy. I know the chat has moved on. The Jockey is a small monster in the Monster Hunter Rise. Highly social, carnivorous bird wyverns that live in large packs. Young jockey males hunt in groups when attacking larger animals. Oh, cool. Let me see what it looks like. Or please don't disappear on me. I see it. Ooh, I like that. And by the way, it has a different name to it too. Hey Vince, have a great one. Mm-mm-mm. Z is like, or DBJ, when they die from a fireball and are raised from the dead, they become flaming skulls. Exactly. Exactly. Why the hell not? Mm-mm-mm. Z says number four is now called readapting, changing what the monster looks like and small parts of the mechanics to make it more in line with the environment. Ooh, see, coming along with the categorization. I love it. Thanks, Z. Mike says dust, smoke, magma, steam. I like to see more genasi based on para elementals. Ooh, that's a. I would let a player do that if they want to para elemental their genasi. Yeah, I'd work with someone to do something like that. Like, hey, can I be a magma genasi, a little bit of earth, a little bit of fire? Hey, but when my body, once per long rest or short rest or something, I could turn my body into magma so that if someone touches me, they burn instead of like, uh, breathing out some kind of a fire or something. I'd do that. Mm-mm-mm. Vince mentioned, excuse me, Mike says, I've done the same thing with dryads. Yeah, that's a good one. Depending on their court, with summer or gloaming, the most infamous dryad in Thole is Hawthorne, jet black, covered in 3-inch thorns, and voice is a whisper, like the Doppler effect. Ooh, and dryads, you could put them. There's so many world environments today. If you put a dryad next to, because they tend to live near trees, but a dryad on a mountainside, maybe a cactus dryad. What would that look like? Hmm. An aquatic dryad. I think they're called myriads, but whatever. Just a different name. Yeah, Mike says, hey, there's zero issue with taking treants and making them huge cacti or seaweed. Oh, I'm with you there. I'm definitely with you there. Like, why not? Okay, so let's go on to some reskinning. Because we are getting a little bit late here. And you guys mentioned something that I was going to use as my honorable mention, and that is changing the intelligence of the thing. The intelligence, well, stat wise, would be intelligence, wisdom, charisma, but making something mindless that isn't, or making something that is brilliant and not. So, for example, dragons kind of fit into this category where unintelligent dragons tend to be called like drakes or wow, my brain just farted. Tend to be called drakes, serpents, um, wyverns, other non dragonized things. But you could have a dragon fight the player characters in your world. Maybe in your world, dragons aren't smart. They can't learn. They don't learn magic. They are worms. That's it. So it's called worms. Thank you very much, there, D. Um, so maybe in your world, dragons aren't brilliant. Maybe they're Game of Thrones dragons. They're uh, bestial, animalistic things. And sure, they have breath weapons. You know, we know the Dungeons and Dragons wyvern has a poison tail, but it doesn't have to. And you could always, literally, the monster manual suggests you as a creator to take capabilities from one monster and add them on and switch them around to other monsters. So you could take a wyvern that spits out webs, or has a hypnotic voice, or phases in and out like a phase spider if you wanted to. Like, why not? But that was going to be an honorable mention, that part of it. Here we go. Zamar says, I do that a lot with monsters because they are naturally a lot smarter than we give them credit for, which is very true. Just because we lack the means to communicate doesn't mean they are dumb. If you've ever watched nature shows, God, if you see like, what is it, hyenas or jackals or something, they are brilliant. Lethally and actually kind of scarily brilliant. Um, and what is it? Are they ravens or crows? Are animals that will remember you, and if attacked, they will spread the word of who and what you are to other birds just like them, and they will hunt you down. Octopi. Yeah, the octopus is something that is scary and stuff. Yeah, there's videos of of flocks of, I think it's crows, if I'm not mistaken. I think ravens as well, that remember people from years ago. There are people who have actually saved birds, those birds, healed them, returned them back to the flock, and then that flock then finds the person that helped heal them and like surround their homes and things like that. There's I was at the Columbus Zoo as an example, and I think I saw one playing with an elephant. The elephant was behind a tree at the Columbus Zoo here, and the bird was like they were like playing hide and seek or something. It was really cute, and I didn't have a way to record it. And I was like, "That's so weird." But yeah, they were. The elephant was like looking around the tree at the bird, and the bird was like hopping back and it was so cool. It was just yes, animals are brilliant, far more brilliant than we give them credit for. There, and so I definitely agree with you there, Pig. Hey, Kylie. Okay. Another way of reskinning is changing the movement. Just simply, how do they get from one place to another? Um, are they extra planar and they go ethereal and disappear? Turning into a spectral version of itself to reappear somewhere else. Does it have brachiation and swing and climb through the trees of a vast canopied forest. Does it have a climbing speed like a spider or something, and it just naturally clings to the walls of the vast cliffside, valley or whatnot? Does it swim through the water, or does it swim? Does it swim through sand or earth like a boulet or a purple worm and erupt out of the ground to attack the PCs? Does it have wings or float through the air or something? The Wizard of Oz has winged monkeys. Well, where'd the wings come from? Nowhere. They just gave them wings to try to make them a little even more scarier. So maybe some of these capabilities that these creatures have been given to them by something else. The winged troll might not be what you think it is, living under the bridge and attacking the PCs when they cross the rickety old rope bridge and the winged troll comes to attack them, right? Kylie says crows don't just remember, they share gossip. Answers with Joe did a neat vid on them. Oh yeah, they do. They communicate with each other and will let you know whether they like you or hate you. When they get attacked by owls, they could be pretty vicious when they attack back. Yep. Winged? Yeah, yeah, Mike. Winged monkeys. The familiar yet to be written. That's hmm. Hmm. Which I've always felt like I wished they had made familiars for player characters that were a collection of statistical capabilities so you could make your own familiar rather than, oh, it's a frog or a bat or a cat or a rat or something. Like, I think they would have just been better like, okay, you get to pick this movement. Maybe it might have, like, you get 5 points and flight counts as 2 points. A climb speed or swim speed only counts as one. If it just has a land speed, you know what I mean? Like something like that. They could have done that pretty easily, I think. Kylie Post says, sorry, moved on me. Here we go. Z says, I feel another honorable mention is reskinning spells and abilities. Example in the Discord. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hells yeah. 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 Reskinning spells. A player character says to me, like, hey, I want my magic missiles to look like blades that I pull out of my vest and throw at people. The answer is yes. Did you change the spell? No, it just looks different. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, monkeys would be the arcane trickster familiar. Oh, hells yes. It sure would be. I'm going to go back up into the chat just a minute. Vampanoid says changing movement type is everything. Nobody cares about cockroaches, but suddenly they can fly and everyone panics. Vampanoid always with the mic drop. Look at you. Yeah, it's like, oh, they're roaches. I'm just going to use my flying carpet and fly over this hazard. And the dungeon master's like, shoot. The Beatles carapace opens up on the back and they start flying through the air, and the player characters are like, no. Mike says ravens and crows have facial recognition. Yep. So I will scatter unpopped popcorn kernels out for them in the winter. Ask me, is morning droves ask me, is morning doves shit on my car anymore? Nope. crow mob. Oh wow. Ah, they keep them away. Ooh. Ooh. It's a great idea. Yeah, but they actually they're extremely smart, which I wonder why we don't do that too often. But anyway, going back to Vampanoy's comment about changing movement type is everything, and mind you, all the things we're talking about can stack on top of each other. But movement type is pretty important. You can make them faster or slower. Now, here's another movement. It's not really a movement type. Here's another thing you can do to a monster to turn it more into an ecological or an environmental effect that's dangerous on the battlefield. Completely remove its movement. Um, so an example would be, here's a classic horror one. Player characters are fighting undead creatures in a fog-filled battlefield. Below their feet, hands reach up to them, skeletal and dead flesh grabbing at their ankles. Right? Maybe all they are, but beneath the player's feet as they're trying to make sure they don't get their legs grabbed because they're also fighting zombies and skeletons that are walking above ground. Maybe all that's below their feet are undead creatures, like maybe some more zombies, maybe a couple dozen zombies that don't have zero movement value. They're just stuck in the ground. Their head comes up, maybe they come up chest level, and they're just reaching for the PCs to grab them. And you have no intention of giving them a movement value, but or maybe you use escalation. You guys heard me talk about escalation. Timers, we talk about timers, tension timers. Maybe those undead will come out the ground in roll dice, 1d4 rounds, but as they are, they're just sitting still. Yes, can the PCs maneuver around them? Sure. But maybe it's dangerous to maneuver around them because if you get caught, they do a grapple on the person's leg, which makes it easier for the undead that are walking around already to attack the PCs. Taking maybe iron golems are instead reskinned as a foundry or a factory, and that they're just robotic arms moving around, and that the PCs need to dodge, run, leap, maneuver around like factory arms that are trying to grab things as like hot ore is being maneuvered around and being poured into molds, and it's super hot, and instead of their iron golems, maybe they're just arms that are stamping metal and crushing the ore as it goes into a chamber or something like that. You could do all those things. Mike Gould says cockroaches fly already. They're beetles. Side note: they glow under ultraviolet light. In Vampire the Masquerade, my Nosferatu used animalism to use command cockroaches to attach to target cars. Now cars can be tracked. I love that. I miss some Vampire the Masquerade. Yep, can be tracked with the right lens. Yeah, surviving radioactive attacks and all that kind of stuff. All right, Foxy, what's going on? In one of my campaigns, Lichs have an army of skeletons, but they also have wings on their backs so they can fly. Flying skeleton seems a little strange, but I like it. I hear where you're going. I can imagine them being tattered leather wings. That's just me. That's off the top of my head. Kylie's like, instead of flying skeletons, what if they're catapulted a handful at a time? I love it. They look like the PCs are like, I use my rangefinder and see what that is, and they're about to launch balls of like white uh bone-like structures. They just look like orbs or something, and they're like, are they launching like bones at us and fling them through the air? I don't know the name of the movie where they flung the soldiers through the air that had shields, and when they landed on the other side of the castle, they exploded into soldiers that were attacking people. But it just reminds me of that image. And I don't know the movie. I wish I'd seen it before, but yeah. Mike says, I have a visual I want to pull on my players called The Garden. It's a field where unmoving arms stick out of the ground. It's literally a place where a necromancer farms undead. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Take away the movement value and just turn them into dangers. The evil lich raises his arms to cast magics against the player characters. DM realizes that player characters, like 5 player characters, they're gonna beat the living shit out of their lich. So instead, the lich raises their arms, and suddenly fire pits open up. There's 6 of them blasting out colored flames out of the ground. Maybe those flame pits are just, elementals that are just reskinned. Look, I took 6 fire elementals and then changed their damage value, which is my next thing about reskinning. I changed their damage value. One is a fire elemental, but I changed it to necrotic. The other one's a fire elemental, but I changed it to lightning damage. I changed. There was another elemental. I changed it to psychic damage. Set things like that. So you could surround the big bad evil guy with monsters, but instead of calling them minions, it's the power of the creature. The lich might have orbs of energy swirling around them that are just, it looks like spells, but like I don't know, prismatic spells, but really they're just monsters that the PCs can like swing at while they're trying to like defend themselves against the lich or something like that. As an example, turning monsters into elemental effects. Z mentions, hey Zamara. Zamara says, an unmentioned type of reskinning, keep the skin, like the looks and description, but change the organs, the mechanics. I do that quite often to teach players to not get too comfortable. I call it restuffing. Yes. Yes. That, I don't know, orc chieftain doesn't need to be literally an orc chieftain in the book. You could like I'm gonna turn this orc chieftain into a hill giant and have him pick up a chunk of I don't know, destroyed wall and throw it at the player characters or something like that, right? It starts picking up goblins and tossing them like boulders. Man. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, I'm with you there, Z. Restuffing. I like this. Mike says, a great reskin surprise is placing an intellect devourer inside any other creature. I have 2 connected out of the box featuring encounters featuring that. Ow, intellect devourers. Don't see too many intellect devourers around anymore. Man. Which is it's not. This is going to be an honorable mention, not a reskin. But let me get to you co-host first. Vampanoy says, can have a remake of zombies instead of the classic Romero ones. Have the 28 days later type with that fast movement and swim climb speeds. Ooh, yeah. World War Z style. Yeah. Players can just barely outrun them, but they're going to have to rest eventually. Yep. Players have to rest. Undead do not. Even if that World War Z, if you ever read the book or actually listened to the audio book, and I think it's even available like YouTube, you could like just listen to it. But anyway, people were dumping undead into oceans and lakes, and the undead, even though it took days, months, years even for the undead to climb back out of the oceans, they just walked on the bottom and walked right back up on land. Yeah, the Great Wall. Mike says, in an intellect devourer hiding inside, say, the family horse is a way to get it the body swap. Hunting one intellect devourer as it makes its way through a town is an entire adventure. Yeah, unto itself. Yeah. Okay, honorable mention. Not necessarily a reskin, but Strange Bedfellows. Oh, shit. Really, Vamp? Vampanoid says, restuffing intellect devourers into kittens, aka how to DPK 101. That is terrible. Yeah, stuffing intellect devourers into kittens, a bunch of flirking. Now, an honorable mention is what I'm going to call Strange Bedfellows, or maybe rebranding. Um, every monster does not necessarily have to operate on its own. Monsters can be hurt, hungry, scared, infested, charmed. What's some other ones? Dominated, possessed, um, uh, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So the player characters come upon that owlbear. You guys brought up the intellect devourer. Maybe that owlbear was possessed by an intellect devourer, or it has rabies and the PCs need to watch out because it might spew out some kind of disease. Maybe that purple worm, if you cut the purple worm open, inside of it is an ooze. So maybe this is more like um, strange bedfellows or Russian doll stacking. Like kill a creature, attacking the creature might split it open to make another creature inside of it. The troll that you kill, and when you kill the troll and split it open, there's an ooze inside of it. The undead horde that is has vultures circling overhead, or carrion beetles inside of it, or has a disease on its skin, or snakes are inside of the rib cages. Those kind of things, right? Mufa says the intellect devourer could be the brain of a powerful sorcerer looking for a suitable host. Ooh, I like that. Or maybe someone cursed by a witch to give it tragic flavor. Ooh, I like that. I'm liking that a lot. Yeah, I mean the intellect devourer doesn't need to be a mindless monster. It could be it's the brain of a powerful individual or something like Mufa mentions. I love it. Mike's possession is huge. The shenanigans you can pull with one ghost is huge. Yeah, yeah. One ghost and a ton of other creatures. Yeah, yeah. Hell's yes. Zamar says, DPJ, I should warn that restuffing can work by making three different types of bandits: a monk type, a fighter type, and a mage type. You can't tell which is which until it acts. Ooh, there we go. All all right, Jay. JB says, thanks for the chat. Off to work. Peace. Hey, peace. Hey, have a great one. Although he's probably already gone now. But yep, have a great one at work. Thanks for stopping by. Zamara says it does mean a lot more stat block juggling for the DM, though, but it gives players a right good scare when reinforcements reach the players after they finally take out the enemy cleric. Yeah, yeah. We often don't do that with our humanoid adversaries, but give them character stats or capabilities, even if it's just one little chunk. Like, oh, this one group has barbarian rage. I'm just going to give them some barbarian rage. This other group is led by fighters with maybe some of the fighter martial archetypes, and their leader has druidic abilities. Or heck, just pick a three good spells. I'm just going to give them the ability to cast these three good spells, and that's it. Mike says, I ran one hag encounter, love hags, where the green hag's vehicle was a zombie treant made from a hanging tree. Ooh, the hanging tree, yeah. The treant could throw the bodies hanging from its limbs like zombie grenades. Oh, I love it. I'm just picturing this home on top of the tree as this pale, almost bone-like tree with these tendril-like roots slowly moving through a swamp or something like that, and then dead bodies, strung up by their feet or their necks, just dangling from the branches. I love it. I love the imagery. Yeah. Okay. So the very end, because I wanted to hold this off to the very end, and it should have been at the beginning, but I'm going to end it right here. And the last thing is changing the literal stats: armor class, hit points, and damage type. Um, Most creatures in the books now have an average hit point amount, and you can always pop it up to its max, lower it down, change up the hit points, because maybe there is a leader that has the maximum hit points and two lieutenants that have 75% of the maximum hit points, and then a bunch of underlings that are 50%, and then maybe a couple of that are like the ones that the hangers on that are smacked in the head and they've got 25%, right? You could actually do that numerically. Armor class, start ranking the armor class up by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points based on toughness. These are armored beetles versus the quick ones. Zombies, right? These are the fast moving ones that have an extra 20 feet of movement speed versus the slow moving ones, right? They also have a climb speed. If five or more together, they've got a climb speed because they start climbing on top of each other or some crap like that. You can very much do that. Changing the damage value, adding an extra die, always helps. Adding an extra attack always helps to make them tougher. Adding extra die damage makes them tougher. Changing or modifying the damage type. These are zombies, but they have a necrotic touch. So instead of pulling this out of my ass, instead of doing 2d6 damage when they grab you, they do a d6 of bludgeoning damage and another d6 of necrotic damage or something. Or you just layer it on top. I'm going to add an extra d6 of poison damage. I'm going to add an extra d4 of psychic damage because of the horror that they have or whatever. Michael says Monster Manual feature the bone stock vanilla average version. Exactly. There's zero issue with fluctuating stats. I do this with giants all the time. Of course, especially if you don't want them to be monoliths. Of course, you're going to have giants that are like smarter, faster, tougher, a bigger weapon, magical skills. Again, giving some more hit points than the others. Absolutely, you're going to have your chieftains, your leaders, your lieutenants, your commanders, and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Uh, mm, 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 mm. Oh, sorry. Zomara says, DBJ, I have recorded the types of reskinning in the Discord. Thank you. Which everyone should join, by the way. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, there we go. Renaming, reskinning, reluring, like lore, readapting, and restuffing. Ooh, let me pop in my face here. I love that. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Z. Pelora says, that's why I like Cypher. Everything has a base level, and you can refine it from there. Level 3 mooks, level 4 leader, give the leader a +1 armor, done. All the other numbers are multiples of the level. They sure are. By the way, if you guys didn't know, and I kind of wish, I don't know why Dungeons and Dragons doesn't do this. The Cypher system, a D20 system, is the level times 3. So a level 4 leader times 3 means that, is it times 3 or times 5? Times 3. So a level 4 leader, 4 times 3 is 12. That means it has a 12 difficulty to avoid its machinations, dodging, fighting, hitting it, that kind of thing. And the players do all the ruling, all of the die rolls in the Cypher system. So as a dungeon master, you just add levels. It's a level 3 mook, 3 times 3 is 9. You already know what the DC is. You already know what kind of harm it does and all that kind of stuff. It's very easy. I'm surprised they don't. Well, maybe that's giving up the ghost a little bit, because I did mention ahead that there's a sexiness to monster books. And the sexiness of monster books is that, having an advanced version of a zombie, people are like, ooh, it's a brand new zombie. And it's like, well, okay. All right. So Mike mentions Hungry Joe is a hill giant with more hit points and a trident where his severed left hand is. Ooh, kind of like Aquaman over my shoulder here, which at one point Aquaman's hand was bitten off, and he had a trident where his hand was. Although Aquaman does carry a trident, you can't see it right now. Mike says the most fearsome dragon in Thul is a white dragon. How? Bump up the hit points and size. Give it class levels. Yep. Tyrannosaurus. I don't know where the proper emphasis is on the which syllable, but Tyrannosauric, the living winter, she who consumes. Tyrannosauric. I'm gonna go with the one I'm mispronounced. He Fox is also DBJ off of monsters to be actually having a noble motive. Ooh, like in Princess Mononoke. Want to know nothing for the animals, spirits for fighting the humans to protect nature. Oh, and again, I guess the last part would be motivation, desires. What do the monsters want? What do they eat flesh? Do they drink blood? Do they want memories? Are they just protectors of a region? Are they just territorial? Do they just want to mate and breed if they are mindless? Are they just traveling through the region, migrating from one place to another? Are they just a scouting force hoping to see the PCs and run back to the larger attacking force? Or is it a mutated random thing that escaped from a wizard's um, enclave or laboratory or something? Having a good motivation, even like he Fox, who decided to go very peaceful at the end of this end of the stream, it maybe the monsters themselves really don't want to be the monster. They are accursed, or they just want to live. They just want peace, much like a bear protecting its cubs. Maybe it just wants you to go away. Yeah. Yeah, like Mike Gould says, changing or removing the alignment is the quickest reskin, especially with generic humanoids. Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. So guys, just wanted to have some fun. Uh uh Please like, share, subscribe if you are inclined to. The channel is growing slightly here and there. There are ways to like punch it forward a little bit, but I don't want it to get too out of control. So I really appreciate all of you brilliant, positive people who are here all the time. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Ride Eternal, shiny and robe, shiny and reskinned. Yeah, I love it. Bye, Kylie. Have a great one. Well, good day, all. And remember, reskinning in your games is encouraged and fun. Just don't try it in real life. Ooh, someone will likely end up in pain, arrested, and or committed. I think a little bit of all that. I think all that. Hey, take care. Thank you so much. Pelora says the best. Take care, all. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Have a great one. I will see